BRUCAST is back, baby.
This BRUCAST episode is brought to you by the BRUCAST Store. Explore a store filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with BRUCAST. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Visit now brew-cast.com/store. Link below.
Back with the fire, can't you see the flames? From Deutschland steps comes the BRUCAST name. Voices like thunder breaking all the chains. Unleash the fury like a runaway train.
Alright, hi everyone, welcome back to another BRUCAST episode. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening to Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rate the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast recommends to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. BRUCAST also on Instagram, X, and TikTok, where I upload shorts with the highlights of the show. So follow now, BRUCAST on Instagram, X, and TikTok. Links in the description below.
Back here we thrive, we survive.
Hey there, BRUCAST fans! Welcome back to another BRUCAST episode. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do subscribe, comment, like. We're gonna be doing the giveaway, the review of the winner of the giveaway at the end of this month. Yes, again, all you have to do is like, subscribe, and comment, and you might win it. Who knows? I can tell you that the giveaway is gonna be something from the BRUCAST store, of course. We need to promote our merch here. But anyway, you guys, you subscribe, for those who are subscribed for a long time, you know. So for those who aren't, just subscribe right now. That's about it. All right, so our guest today is Ryan Christensen. Ryan Christensen is a hypnotist, author, and veteran with over 2 decades of intelligence experience. Known for helping high achievers and neurodivergent professionals transform their mindset for peak mental performance. Drawing from his own journey through life, he developed a unique approach to ending internal conflict and making success inevitable. All right, Ryan, how are you doing, my friend?
Doing really well, man. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for being here. It's an honor. Before anything, I need to ask you, how did you learn how to do hypnosis? Where this interest came from?
Back in 2019, 2020, I'd already been in the intelligence community for like 22, 23 years at that point. It was time for me to find my next thing, right? And I had thought about, like my parents, my dad runs a nonprofit. My mom helps people with houses. My brother's a financial advisor. So they're always talking about how they're helping people and all these amazing results they get for people. So I thought about becoming a psychologist. And while I was doing a lot of work on myself in one of the groups I was in, there was a hypnotist talking about like toxic shame and emotional baggage. Right? And I'm, well, okay, Catholic, got some of that. Did some work with him and just kind of felt lighter. You're carrying a pound, 30, 50 pounds worth of stuff, you get rid of 10, 20 pounds and everything's just easier, right? So that piqued my interest in getting my psychology degree, and becoming a psychologist would be like 6 years and $500,000. I'm like, okay, that's going to be a slog. But I get certified as a hypnotist in like 6 weeks for $2,000. I'm like, that's much more doable, right? So I got certified in February 2020, and like 2 weeks later, the entire world shuts down because of pandemic. So I've got nothing but time on my hands, right? And started working with some people online, found out I had a bit of a talent for it, got some more training, started my business in April, and went full-time as a hypnotist in October 2020. It's been my life ever since.
Oh, and you do have a soothing voice, so I guess that helps a lot.
If you got it, use it, If you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
So the voice plays a huge role, I would assume. That as far as I understand, it does. Could you just go through one of the sessions, walk us through how one of those sessions look like?
Yeah, sure. So fundamentally, hypnosis is just a set of techniques that gets us more direct access to the unconscious mind, of what's going on in the back of your head. Because we're in a conscious state, we don't really have access to that. There's kind of a barrier between the conscious and the unconscious mind. We call it the critical factor in hypnosis, right? It's part of us that's kind of judging everything, judging whether things are true or false based on what we already believe. So the process of getting you into hypnosis, it's kind of like a guided meditation, right? We're just taking you another level deeper in your mind, right? So I'm just walking you through some process, some steps, and it takes about 5, 6, 7 minutes to really get you down there. Once we're down there, the entire point is to try and understand what the beliefs are, what your understanding of the world is that's not really working the way it should be, right? You're moving through the world based on a certain set of understandings about who you are and how the world works, right? And that determines how you need to move through the world to survive and thrive, right? Who I am, how the world works, tells me what I need to do to get what I need. So it's about getting down there and exploring and say, okay, like things are not working for you, right? You're not really able to succeed, not really able to live the life you want to. Maybe you can't have the relationships you want. Fair enough. You're trying to solve a problem of some kind, but doing that, right? Your mind has a purpose of some kind, right? So show me the problem. Like, what's the problem you're trying to solve that makes this happen? Because fundamentally, the individual issues and problems we see, they kind of form a pattern. And that pattern is the signature of an adaptation to some kind of problem. Got some kind of problem, create some kind of solution, and it has all these sort of follow-on effects, right? One thing about the unconscious mind that's really important is it's always worried about right now. So all the solutions it creates are for right now, to solve the problem right now. And it can't really take into account the second order effects, the kind of long-term impact of that thing, right? So it's like if you feel sad, eat a donut, you'll feel better. And that makes perfect sense and it works really well. Unless you're depressed for a year and all of a sudden you're 350 pounds and you got a completely different set of problems, right? But it doesn't have the capacity to really understand that. So it's about understanding what these short-term solutions are, what the problem is trying to solve with these short-term solutions, so we can, get rid of that long-term impact. And just let it kind of show us the problem and help us understand like how it got to that, right? What's the chain of logic that created that set of beliefs? Because once we understand that chain of logic, we can disprove that old chain of logic because it's typically creating it with very simple understandings of the world when we're young. We understand things on a much more sophisticated level these days, right? Got that perfect example from the movie Good Will Hunting, right? Where Matt Damon's sitting there and he's talking about having, gotten the snot kicked out of him when he was young. And Robin Williams says it's not your fault. And he's like, yeah, I know. It's like, no, it hasn't actually sunk in at that level, right? So once we disprove that old chain of logic, well, now that old belief isn't true anymore. So you can create a new chain of logic that draws a different conclusion, right? Going from it's my fault, it's all my fault to it's not my fault, right? And by doing that with the examples it gives us, it helps it update its understanding of the world and understanding of who we are, so we can do things better, make things easier, right? So we've got a more true and correct view of how to get what we need in life.
Wow. So if the mind was a hard drive, you're basically
Mhm.
going there and fixing the bugs. Could you put it
Yeah,
that way?
yeah.
Does it?
Yeah. You're debugging the software, right? And the problem is, you don't. There's no real way for us to understand what that software is or how it got built, right? It's trying to figure out stuff all on its own. It's looking at patterns of stuff over time rather than individual events. It's got a completely different perspective. It's looking at the forest rather than the trees. So we don't really know what it's saying. We don't understand how it's creating meaning based on that. We don't understand the conclusions it's drawing. There's no real way for us to see that. And trying to come at it from like a rational perspective just flat out doesn't work. Right. Because you're saying, I see these trees. It's like, cool. That has nothing. That's like the downstream impact of this thing. Like, I'm not good enough is like a conclusion it draws, right? Let's say that's a conclusion. And say, oh, well, I'm not good enough in this way. Okay, I just changed that. Well, that's not an individual thing. That's just, I'm not good enough being applied to a specific situation. So because we're dealing with these individual situations, that's kind of how we look at things. Oh, this thing's happening. This is a specific thing. This thing I can put my finger on. I can fix this. Great, you fix that. But this is still at play. So by going upstream to this thing, to the concept of I'm not good enough as a whole, if you change I'm not good enough to I am good enough, now you are good enough in all situations. So you don't have to do that fixing on these levels. You're not fighting that, right? Which is what reduces that internal conflict, because you're not trying to fight these conclusions. You don't feel I'm not good enough and then say, oh, I have to find a way to become good enough. No, you're just good enough. You can just move on.
Would you say that the only way is to do that unconsciously, or doing working on the subconscious? Because the way I understand, when you go to traditional talk therapy, that's the opposite. You're fully conscious what's happening. So when would you say it's better to do talk therapy instead of of uh, of hypnosis, or vice versa? What would be the
Mm.
recommendations for people?
So in my own journey, I've done pretty much everything, right? I've
Okay.
done talk therapy, I've done coaching, I've done spiritual retreats, I've done entrepreneurial retreats, I've done psychedelics, I've done breath work, I've done hypnosis, I've done basically everything but acupuncture to fix my
Yes.
head, right? I've
Wow.
done it all. And what I realized along the way is like everything works. Everything works, right? But everything has limits, right? And so it's about understanding how that tool works and what you can use it for, right? Like there's this idea of like all models are wrong, some models are useful. You have to use the right map for the part of your journey you're on, right? If I want to walk down the street to the local Starbucks, I'm gonna use one kind of map. If I want to drive, 3 hours away to visit my parents, I use a different map. If I want to fly from Austin to Dubai, I use a completely different one. The Austin to Dubai map is not going to help me get to Starbucks. I can't do that, right?
Mhm.
So you have to use the right map for the job. And kind of like talk therapy is really good for when you just don't get it, when things just don't make sense, right? Because you're kind of trying to, it gives you a more rational, conscious understanding of why things are the way they are. Perfect. But it really can only give you an understanding. And all the tools you create from that are ways to make better decisions, right? It gives you a better decision making framework based on a better understanding of who you are and how the world works. Great. But you're not changing how that subconscious mind is moving through the world. You're not getting down there. You don't have any awareness of that, right? One of the reasons why I think psychedelics and psychedelic assisted therapy is becoming so popular is you're kind of blending those two worlds. Psychedelics are beautiful because they kind of open up that door to the unconscious mind and you get to have, a greater awareness of what's going on down there, right? It kind of like brings things up and kind of walks you through some stuff. So you get a lot more information from that perspective. But the problem is you don't have any control over where you go and what you see. Like it's going to take you on whatever journey it chooses to. You don't have a choice. And that can be kind of rough, right? Because a lot of times what it'll do is it'll show you what it thinks is most important for you to see. And if you haven't done a lot of work, that can be a really rough ride. Right? You can see some pretty cool stuff, right? Well, if you're carrying around a bunch of darkness, a bunch of baggage, a bunch of pain, it says this is what you need to deal with. You're going to see a lot of dark stuff that's really painful, right? And as much as that sucks, as much as that could be a horrible experience, like it's incredibly valuable because now you have a better idea of what the truth is down there from his perspective. But there's limits on what you can do change wise while you're down there, right? In terms of actually changing things and fixing things. And once you're done with that journey, the door to your mind, that part of your mind is closed again. Now you're doing again conscious work to understand and make better decisions with it, right? So there's just limits to what you can do with that. The reason I love hypnosis so much is I get to go ahead and do it as a directed, um, deliberate process. I get to open that door. I get to go down and find exactly what I want. I can spend as much time as I need to understand it. And then I can do all the work to change it while I'm down there. So we don't have to come back until we know it's fixed. Right. And that's the beauty of it. But that's not necessarily the first tool you need to use. And I don't think it's actually the best tool to use for different kinds of beliefs, right? Because we're creating understandings of the world, both from the perspective of the forest and the perspective of the trees. Hypnosis for me is a beautiful way to play with this forest perspective because that's really the best way to get that direct access to it, to understand it directly and to change it directly, right? Because you're using like this camera and the computer system with it. You actually get to play with this thing and play with it directly. But this is not the best tool to play with this,
Mm.
right? This is a rational understanding of the world. This is logical understanding of the world. And that's better to play with and as a rational logical process, right? So it's using the right tool to play at the right part of your mind in the right way to create the change you need. The tricky part is figuring out where what's the phrase? Problems are very easy to solve once you know what the problem is, right? Once you know what the problem is, it's pretty easy to figure it out. The hard part is figuring out what the heck the problem is and where it is. And because we don't really understand how our mind is looking at the world from both the perspective of the forest and the trees, and therefore has two completely different sets of belief, we think we have one understanding of the world. Now there's two. And because we think there's one understanding of the world, we're using all the tools to try and fix this one understanding of the world when there are multiple understandings playing from different perspectives. So now we have to use different sets of tools to deal with different understandings because we've got different cameras, different lenses, different perspectives.
Wouldn't all problems be at the end of the day some childhood trauma? Is it possible to generalize to that degree?
I don't really like to talk about things in terms of trauma because that's not the way that everybody experiences or understands it, right?
Oh.
But I think the better way to look at it is as soon as we're born, we're trying to understand the world, trying to figure stuff out because we got to figure out how to survive and thrive, right? Got to figure it out. And so that part of your mind, your unconscious mind, is from the beginning just like trying to figure out what the heck is going on, looking at patterns, looking at stuff, trying to get a handle on things. And it's doing this on its own, right? A baby is not sitting there asking questions about what things are going, Can't, right? You don't really have the ability to kind of interact and really ask those questions, get information until you're 2 or 3 years old, not with any fidelity. And it's not until you're like about 5, 6, 7 years old that your rationality, your reason comes online to really be able to play that game. So it's automatically creating all these understandings in the world on its own. You don't really know what it's looking at, don't really know how it's assessing it or what meaning it's creating. So every bit of meaning it's creating is pretty simplistic, right? It's pretty simple, right? But once it creates that meaning, as long as it's working, I don't think it's broken. Are you breathing? Yes, working just fine. Let's keep going. Not broke, don't fix it, right? Doesn't see a need to. Now, if you grow up in a childhood where things are pretty good, you're getting what you need, your needs are met, there's not too much conflict, you're getting the support you need, well, you're going to create a pretty solid set of beliefs and understandings of the world that's going to help you navigate pretty well, right? Unfortunately, a lot of us don't have that kind of life, right? We can't get what we need. It's not a safe environment, right? There's disturbance, whatever we're experiencing, all kinds of negative emotion, really, really frustrated. So we're going to come up with, less than optimal understandings of the world, right? One of the core things that kind of happens in that situation is kind of end up with a very specific set of high level conclusions. Number one, there's something wrong with me. Number two, because there's something wrong with me, I'm not good enough. And because I'm not good enough, I don't deserve. Right? It's kind of this very simple, very clear narrative story, set of beliefs that pretty much everybody who grows up in that kind of environment ends up coming to, at least here in the West, right? It's the thing I've noticed is a bit different depending on different cultures. Like working with the Eastern Europeans and Russians is like such a pain in the butt because they've got a completely different world that they're living in. Then, like I grew up in Kansas, that's completely different Russia, right? And so the beliefs that kind of come out of that are very different. But fundamentally, the story is there's something wrong with me. I'm not good enough. I don't deserve. So from that point on, our rational brain says, well, I can't do that. So I need to figure out what's wrong with me so I can fix it, so I can become good enough and deserve. Right. And that plays out through the rest of our life in a lot of ways. Some people get stuck where they're just kind of stuck in a cage, kind of boxed in by their pain and their insecurity. Everything they really want to do, they're just not really allowed to. And some people are on the other side of it, right? Where they're just chasing that goal, that constantly moving goals, right? Constantly moving goalposts, constantly moving finish line, just chasing that forever, trying to prove that they're good enough, right? And it kind of just comes down to, do you have the talent and ability to really put some points on the scoreboard in some way, or where you're not able to develop that, right? But it's the same thing. You're trying to prove you're good enough in some way, trying to fix yourself so you can deserve.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And the funny thing is, well, it's not the first time I hear about such concepts and
Mhm,
oh, but the thing is, Ryan, throughout my life, I have met so
mhm,
many people that they know that there's something wrong. They know that they could
mhm,
improve, but they
mhm.
just they don't want to do it.
Sure.
Why do you think is that? Some people they can see the path, they can see that there are ways of improving whatever is going on, but they just seem incapable of doing it. Would that be fear
Well, what I
of
would
change?
say is fundamentally, one of the most important things our mind is doing is protecting us from emotional pain, right? Because once you're hurting too much and you can't figure it out, you don't want to be here anymore. There's a certain level of pain at which you become a threat to your own life, fundamentally. And that can happen very, very young, right? If you're stuck in this environment where you have absolutely no control over your environment and you're miserable, can't get what you need, you're in a lot of emotional pain over and over again, you start going down that road, whether you really understand it or not, because there's a certain point where, like, I can't sink this anymore. So once that starts happening, now your mind has an interesting problem because it has to protect your life from you.
Oh my god!
And
Wow.
fundamentally, right? Right? It has to protect your life from you because you're the one that's going to exit, right? So now it has to start shaping your life to keep you away from that emotional pain. And everybody's buttons are different, right? You've got these people who know there's something wrong, know they need to improve, but they haven't had a lot of success in doing that. So if they try, odds are they're going to fail. At least that's what they feel, what they think. And if they fail, it proves something wrong with me, not good enough, not going to be able to figure it out. Down that hole they go. So it's safer not to try. Fear is that thing of like, that's dangerous. Don't go there. And so, yes, they're afraid. Why? Because it's dangerous. Why? Because they might end up in that hole again, and maybe this time they don't get out. So your mind is doing exactly what it's supposed to protect you from yourself. Unfortunately, again, short term, long term. In the short term, it's protecting you from that failure, that immediate term emotional pain, to make sure you don't go down that road. In the long term, you're starving of everything that makes life worth living, right? That's the dichotomy, and the real challenge that we face is like, I don't understand. It's like, well, it's protecting from pain, and it doesn't understand that because it doesn't care, because it's not a problem right now.
Hmm.
Yes, it's keeping you from dying fast, but you're dying slow, and it doesn't care about dying slow. This is where rock bottom comes in. Okay. Where that holding you back gets you to a point where, like, I'm being held back so much and starving so much, I want out because I'm starving. So the tool it's using to protect you becomes a threat. And as soon as that becomes immediate, now it has to change. But until you get there, it doesn't have a reason to, because it's working well enough. It ain't broke because you're still breathing. It's doing fine. It's doing what it's supposed to.
Hmm.
Therefore, it's not broken. Therefore, there's no reason to fix it. So you have to find a way to bring that in the present, show it that trap, so it says, oh, this is broken and I need to fix it.
Just to give some
Mhm.
context and examples for the
Sure.
listeners, we could be talking about people stuck in toxic relationships over and over
Hmm.
again,
Hmm.
or unfulfilling jobs, would I say,
Hmm.
or I'm just coming up with
Oh,
those
yeah.
all the top of my head.
Yeah.
I s-
Absolutely.
yeah, okay.
Absolutely. Well, think about this in terms of somebody who keeps on getting in toxic relationships. Okay. Number one, you have this need. I have got to be in a relationship. That's a powerful need for me. People need to be in relationships, but I'm not good enough. I don't deserve. So I can't have a healthy person,
Mm.
right? I don't deserve that. And I know it, right? And the thing about relationships is you can't hide who you are in relationships, not for long. Like, that is when you're seen most clearly. So if there's something wrong with me and I'm broken and I'm not good enough, they're going to see it. So I can't be with a healthy person because they're going to see that I'm broken and not good enough. They're not going to accept me. So I can't go there. But I have to have a relationship. So I find somebody who's going to accept the broken, unworthy me, which tends to be toxic, right? Not because we want to be in toxic relationships, because we don't deserve any better. And going for what we want would confirm the not good enough, something's wrong with me, down the hole we go, right? You can't let yourself have things you don't deserve, especially in that kind of situation, because they're going to see, or at least that's the understanding of the thing you feel. So got to protect myself from that. Fair enough. Got to give yourself something. Fair enough. But you're not getting the good stuff. You want filet mignon, you're getting Taco Bell drive-through. Like, that's it, right? Because that's all. Because that's all you can afford. All you can afford is Taco Bell drive-through. So that's what you eat, right? You ain't got enough money for that filet mignon, right? If you think about, jobs you don't enjoy, again, like, you need a job, you got to do something, got to pay the bills, but you can't really go for what you want, even if you know how talented you are, because you might fail, might not get it, right? Imposter syndrome is a beautiful example of this, right? Everybody's telling you how awesome you are, and you don't believe it because it doesn't match that idea that you have of who you are, right? So it doesn't land, it just doesn't resonate, right? So that's the entire point of all this work, is let's get down there and take a look at why you think you're the problem. Take a look at why you think you're the thing that needs to be fixed. Take a look at why you feel like you're not good enough. Figure out where that stuff comes from and fix it. So we go from there's something wrong with me to nothing wrong with me. I'm not good enough. I am good enough. I don't deserve to. I am deserve. Fundamentally, the place I try and take people to, where I work to get my clients to, is a core understanding and set of beliefs that says there's nothing wrong with me. There never was. There is nothing to heal, and there never was. And part of that is the idea that emotions are pain, right? Emotions are pain. That's an idea. That's how we're judging it, right? But they don't have to be. So what I do as part of the hypnosis process is I take pain questions and I take emotions and I turn them from pain into questions.
Could you give an
Okay?
example?
Fear. Basically, what I'm saying is that every emotion you experience is your mind saying, I'm looking at the world and I'm seeing this. I understand that this is what we're up against right now. I got a problem I'm trying to solve. I need you to help me solve it. I'm giving you fear because that's a threat of some kind, and I need you to get away from it. That's it telling you extremely useful, extremely good stuff. But because we're interpreting it as pain, we don't try and figure out what that fear is. We just run. We don't try and
Mm.
figure out what the threat is. We just run. And a lot of times the threat is it's going to show you something about yourself you don't like, and it's going to hurt like heck emotionally. So you go, okay. But if it's a question, if it's saying, I'm afraid because there's a threat, awesome, cool. If it's not painful, I can engage with it. I can play with it, right? Because fundamentally, if your hand hurts, you're supposed to look at your hand because that's where the problem is. Pain is a signal that says there's a problem here. But the problem it's talking about is not in you, it's in the world outside. It's the challenge that you're facing in that moment, not who you are. Okay. So once you understand the problems out there, it's a lot easier to start figuring out how to do that. The emotion is telling you what kind of challenge you're facing, what kind of problem you're facing. And if figuring out what the problem is the hardest part, and it's telling you how to find the problem, well, you get there a lot faster.
So would you say
Right.
that most of the times, if not always, the problem is not on yourself? It's outside of you?
100%. I would say just about every single time. And this is why. When you're young, you have absolutely no control over your environment whatsoever. Right? You have zero ability to change that whatsoever. Right? Up until about high school, you got like nothing. Right? So the only thing you have any power over is you. And since you are the only thing you have any power over, that's what you start trying to fix and change because that's the only thing you got. The other thing is, if emotions are pain, where do we feel them? We feel them inside.
Mm-hmm.
What's the thing that hurts? This. What's the problem got to be? This.
Yeah, of course. I mean,
Right?
I know. Okay, so
Right?
it's
So,
but it's a reaction from an external factor.
yes, exactly.
Ah, okay.
But because we don't have that kind of sophistication of understanding when you're young, because we've only got one thing we only got one tool to play with, right? We're the only thing we can change and do something with. If all you've got is a hammer, all your problems look like nails, right? We don't understand where the problem is. We don't understand how to look at the environment as the problem rather than us. And the problem is, by the time we get older to where we could understand that, we've got this understanding of the world that we've been using forever that there's nothing we can do with that moment because it's locked behind that wall, right? So the thing is, one of the big things that I play with is this idea that, okay, when you're young, just can't get what you need. Fair enough. Try everything over and over and over, nothing works. If you're trying stuff and trying stuff and trying stuff, nothing works. It's really to start thinking like maybe it's not the things you're doing that are a problem, you're the thing that's wrong, right? But fundamentally, you're just playing a game where the rules of the game are always changing, goalposts are always moving. What's good enough one day just is not good enough the next, right? And if that's happening, there's really really no way to win that game, right? You could be the most brilliant, most amazing person on the planet, no way for you to win that game, right? So if you cannot win a game that cannot be won, does that actually tell you anything about who you are or how good you are?
It keeps you stuck.
Well, it doesn't really tell you anything about yourself, right?
Okay. No.
Right. If you cannot win a game that cannot be won, it doesn't actually tell you anything about who you are, or what you're good at, right? Like, is there anything wrong with you that you cannot win a game that cannot be won? No. Right. If the game is rigged, losing is the expected outcome. So the fact that you could do nothing but lose has nothing to do with you. The game is rigged.
Yeah.
Right. But because you have no other choice but trying to figure out, that's what you do.
And if you
But I can
accept
say the game's rigged.
and if you accept that as true, you're sentenced for life. You just the game's rigged. That's the way things are. Like you're doomed.
Yeah. 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 But look at how that plays out. You look around, it's like, wow, that is in fact how people are playing.
A lot of
Right?
people are playing
They're
like
playing the
that.
game of trying to fix themselves, which is a losing game. Why? Because that's not where the problem is. The problem is the environment. But you didn't have any control over that when you were a kid. So you did the only thing you could. And that makes sense. Right? But the other thing is this. Think about this. You've been trying to fix yourself forever. Right? But trying to figure out what the thing is that's wrong so you can fix yourself and be better. Fair enough. Done a lot of stuff, right? Still don't feel like you're fixed. It's like you're looking for a needle in a haystack, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's almost impossible to find. But what's even harder is to try and find a needle in a haystack when there's no needle in the haystack. Right?
Wow. That's
Right?
mind blowing.
What
But
if the
if
only, what
but
if the right what if the only thing that's ever been wrong with any of us is we thought that the thing that was wrong was us? That we thought there was something wrong with us. Because that actually explained it, right? You fix something, try and fix something, doesn't work. That's not the thing that's broken. And try to fix something a million times. And it's never been fixed. So that's not what's broken.
Ryan, that's a very interesting idea. But what if
Mhm.
just what if
Mhm.
the person is genuinely evil and bad,
Mhm.
and there's really something wrong with them? You're telling me
Sure.
that's never the case?
That kind of person's ever trying to fix this problem. That kind of person is never trying to actually improve themselves. If somebody's evil, they're not trying to fix themselves. That ain't it.
Oh no, though
Right?
of course. Hmm.
The only people who are ever going to ask this question are people who want to change, who want to become better, who are trying to fix a problem.
Oh,
Right? People who are evil, people who don't want to look at themselves, whatever. They're never going to ask this question, so it doesn't matter. And that's not a problem that we have to solve because the only thing that we're really responsible for is us. The only thing we got to figure out is how to live our life.
I see. Yeah, of course.
Right? And the thing is, like, it's really easy sometimes. Like, some people have stuff that is like very obviously different about them. Right? Like, if you're going through the world and you've got no legs, like, it's obvious. There's something completely different about you that makes life very hard. Right? But the thing is that problems have solutions. Right? The fundamental thing about a problem is it has a solution. Can you do anything about the fact that you have no legs? No, nothing you can do to change that. There's absolutely nothing you can do. Therefore, that's not the problem. But it's really hard to walk around if you've got no legs. Really hard to move around if you've got no legs. So what's the problem? How do I get around in the world with no legs? That's a problem you can solve. I have autism.
Hmm.
I didn't learn I had autism until I was almost 48 years old. I grew up in Kansas in the 70s and 80s before the internet was a thing. Nobody had any idea what the heck was wrong with me. The world works just fine for everybody else. It does not work for me. And I know with absolute certainty that I am the thing that's different. So I spent my entire life trying to figure out how to fix myself.
You're just smarter than
Right?
everyone else.
Well, I'm smarter. I'm smarter. Yeah, that's definitely part of it. But the other piece is that I'm autistic. I can't see the world the same way you do. So when you say this is how things work because that's what you're seeing, it does not work for me because I can't see the same things you do. So it's like you get a new job, right? You go on the job and say, welcome, and here you go. Here's your employee manual. Here's how we do things. And anybody who's had more than one job takes that thing, chucks it in the trash, and says, okay, how do things really work? Right? Because you read the manual and say it works like this, and nobody does it that way. Period. Nobody.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, of
So
course.
you all said, "Oh, you want to learn? You want to understand how things go? Here's your employee manual." And I said, "Okay." And I read the manual. I tried to do it that way, and nobody does it that way. What the heck? Right? So my entire life has been trying to figure out how the heck to navigate a world that is not built for me at all, and none of you can really explain to me how to do it. That is going to make you feel like it is 100% you that's wrong. Right? So it took me a very long time to get to the point where, oh, this is just how I'm built. And given how I'm built, I'm getting exactly the kind of results I should. Right? But I'm a Lamborghini in rural Kansas on dirt roads, and everybody else is driving a 4x4 pickup. That is really obviously the wrong freaking place for Lamborghini. But you get me on the Autobahn, and I'm rocking and rolling and leaving them in the dust. I need to be in a different environment. I need to be doing different things. I was not built for that place. Fair enough. I need to get somewhere else. Didn't understand that it was the environment that I was in that didn't match and support who I am. Fair enough. Now I do. Now that I know I'm autistic, now that I know what the problem is, or not the problem, now that I understand how I'm wired, I know now how to get the support I need
Hmm.
to navigate the world the way I need to. I can't change the fact that I'm autistic. There's nothing I can do about that. Therefore, that's not the problem. The problem is, given that I'm autistic, given that I'm high IQ, how do I get what I need in the world to survive and thrive? That's the only question I have to answer.
How long is usually that journey between finding the fact that there's no problem, you're just wired a
Mhm,
certain way, and you
mhm,
just need to look for ways of existing in the world that works for you?
mhm.
Into like the question is how long usually takes from that moment into
Mhm.
thriving, like years.
That's an interesting question. So, like I said, there's four beliefs that I create. We covered the first two. Number one, there's
Okay.
nothing wrong with me. Never was, because I'm not the problem. I'm not the thing that needs fixed. Right? There's nothing to heal. There never was, because his emotions are not pain. They do not come from emotional wounds. So there's nothing to heal. Right? Trauma is not really a thing under that model, because if every emotion is just my understanding of the world, nobody makes me feel anything. Right? That's my understanding of the world. That's my interpretation. Nobody makes that happen. Just how I'm understanding things. And any event we talk about as traumatic is a moment where I am facing a challenge, I'm facing a problem, my mind is screaming at me for help, and I don't have an answer,
Hmm.
right? But I'm still breathing. So I did solve it in some way. Maybe it wasn't the prettiest, but I'm here. Therefore, I did find an answer, even in the worst of it. And it's just understanding what those lessons are and everything else along the way. And that's a much easier thing to do than trying to heal a bunch of trauma, right? And if the question is, how do I know, what do I understand about myself and the world? The other thing about trying to heal wounds is like every single thing that goes wrong is another wound you got to heal. No, it's another example of what you understood about yourself. So you get the understanding. Now you've covered a lot of different bases. You don't have to deal with every single moment because it's looking at forest, not trees. The trees don't matter from that perspective. The individual events don't matter from that perspective. Now you got a big one. Yeah, probably some stuff you need from that individual really traumatic thing. Fair enough. But most of it you can cover just by understanding who you are and how the world works differently. So you do those two things, and now you're in an interesting place. Because if you have to fix yourself, fundamentally, you're broken. And broken things aren't particularly valuable. If you need to heal yourself, that means you need to fix yourself, means you're broken, means you're not particularly valuable. And you know it. So you can't really have healthy self-esteem while those two things are true. But after that, you can create healthy self-esteem, but you have to do it in a way that doesn't have to be measured. Because if you're measuring, the answer could always be not enough. So nothing wrong with me, I never was. Nothing healed, I never was. I am good enough as I am to deserve whatever I choose. And I don't have to prove it to anybody, not even myself. If that is the fundamental filter through which you view the world, much more powerful.
I'm really questioning myself here. Why not why not all therapy sessions start like that? Like day one, those are the fundamental. Why they just want to keep you there forever?
No, well, that I don't think that's true. I think that okay, yes, there is a certain portion of therapists and everything that just suck and they're just egotistical, doing whatever the heck they want to. Yeah, but I think the majority of them really want to help, and they're using the tools that they know and they understand, and they're doing the best they can with it. Fair enough. The reason why I got to where I'm at is I did all that stuff and nothing actually fixed me. Right? I'm still seeing these problems show up over and over again. And because I'm autistic, I cannot lie to myself. And I cannot pretend that better equals fixed. So I ain't done yet. I just have to keep going and going. And so the thing that I did is I said, okay, this does not work the way they say it does. Fair enough. How does it work? I just reverse engineered every single one of them to figure out what the underlying principles are, how that sucker actually worked, and what the left right limits were. Okay. Now I know which tools do what, and now I know where the gap is. It's in the unconscious mind. It's at this level. Fair enough. I spent 23 years in intelligence. Mm-hmm. Every answer I need is in the back of my head. Every answer you need for you is in the back of your head. I know exactly where that stuff is. I just got to go ask the right questions and put together a puzzle, which I've been doing my entire life. So I figured out a lot of stuff because I didn't have any other choice. And because I'm not locked into any of these models because I never started there, I just looked for what was truest. And this is where I ended up. And that's why I wrote the book. Because a book is a description of everything I understand about the mind and how to get to those four beliefs on your own to the extent that you can. Right? Came up with something very different because I didn't have a choice. I have to say my own ass because nobody else can. You don't know how it works clearly because it's not working the way you say it does. Therefore, fair enough, I'll do it myself. So I did. Took a long time, took a lot of work, and one of the interesting and most important things about this is the work that I do, you can't do for yourself. It's not actually possible for a couple different reasons. Number one, if you have to do if you're a brain surgeon, you cannot do brain surgery on yourself. That don't work. You can't play with your unconscious mind in a conscious state, right? It just doesn't work that way. Number two, if your mind is protecting your life from you, it don't trust you. So why would I let you change it? Right?
Could you repeat that part? It doesn't trust you?
If you're in a position where if your mind has to protect your life from you, from your consciousness, right? Can it trust you? No. Why? You're a threat to your own life fundamentally. So it can't trust you really. So it's not gonna let you do a lot of changes. And every change you want to make are to let you do things that it thinks are bad, wrong, or dangerous in some way. So why the heck is it gonna let you do that? Right? So you fundamentally can't really do this work for yourself. So here's the really, oh my God, this blew me away. I wrote this book. I've got the answer. I know how this works. I do it for people all the time. And I thought I'm good to go. And what I realized about a month ago is I hadn't actually done any of that work. Why? Because I can't do it to myself. Right?
So you hired someone else?
I had to hire somebody else. But here's the really fascinating things. I couldn't let myself know I hadn't done that work yet. because knowing I wasn't fixed after all this stuff was too dangerous, right? I've been starving my entire life from the things that I need, and I can't handle that anymore. If I'm going to starve, I'm out. I'm done. I'm out. So I can't let myself know that I'm still stuck because it might go. So I had to wait until I could find somebody to do the work the way I needed it to be done. I hadn't figured that out until about a month ago. I'm sitting there working with her and work. I'm just stuck on something, and I realized, oh crap, I am stuck in the same trap I fixed for everybody else because I haven't been able to fix it yet because I didn't have somebody to fix it for me, which blew my mind. And so then for the past 3 or 4 weeks, I've had to work with her to do the work I thought was already done, which is insane. But it's like such beautiful way that it's like just watching that unfold was like I knew what the problem was, couldn't fix it, couldn't tell myself it was a problem. So I had to live a lie for a while until I could find somebody to fix it for me, at which point I could let myself know it needed to be fixed because here's the solution. I couldn't let myself know there was a problem still until I had a solution available. And once that sucker became available, okay, now we got to fix it. Now you can go fix it.
How did you do that? Did you create like a LinkedIn job announcement? How did you find it?
No, and that's no. It was I was just I was connecting with people on LinkedIn and connected with a lady who does a lot of subconscious work from a neurological perspective. Right, she's kind of like got these techniques, and she's watching your eyes to say, oh, it's getting stuck in this part here. That means there's because you're avoiding this thing here. There's something you're avoiding. Right, so we drag you to the space you're avoiding and start playing with it, so that can come up. So because of that, I got to map out all the beliefs that I can't get to myself and play with it because I'm working with the subconscious mind through that tool in an indirect way. But because I don't know how it works and I don't know what she's seeing, I can't hide that shit from her. So I couldn't dodge it. Right. Which is why she drove me that. It's like, oh, goddamn. I couldn't lie to her because I didn't know what she was seeing. So I couldn't hide it. And I knew this problem was there. And that part of me, it gave me Blaze to play with that part of me in a way I couldn't lie about. And so I could actually do the work through her that I needed using those tools. But until I realized that was possible and that's how that worked, I couldn't let myself know I still had the problem because I didn't have a solution for it. Right. And if I'm going to keep starving, that ain't an answer. And if I don't have a me out there to fix me, and I know that I don't have a me out there to fix me, that means I'm going to starve forever. I'm out. Right. Which is, I looked at it, it's like, man, that is just such a beautiful solution. Right. Oh, I can't let you know you're so broken until I have a way to fix you. So I'm going to let you live this lie until I find the tool. And as soon as I find the tool, then we can do the work that you thought you've already done. Then we can get you the truth because it's safe.
That's
I had to
beautiful.
protect me from the knowledge that I was broken still until I could have the tool to fix it.
That's beautiful. I never heard anything
Yeah.
like that before, man. That sounds powerful.
Oh
So
no. Oh my God. Yeah, like I'm just sitting here going, like, wow, that's good. Like that is absolutely brilliant.
is
And I did absolutely nothing to make that happen. My mind did all that stuff for me.
wow. So
Right.
the mind is always trying to repair itself,
Well, it's always trying to protect you.
protect you. Okay.
Right. And because I knew how this stuff worked, I knew the trap and I knew I was stuck in it. It knew, but it didn't have a way out. And until you have a way out of the trap, like letting me know I was still trapped was too dangerous. So I had to wait until it had a way out of the trap that I knew I was in until it could say, okay, we're trapped still. We need it. And this is a tool we can use to get out. Right. So it was protecting me from that pain of still being broken until such time as I had a way to fix it and had a way out of the trap. Right.
Is
And all that all comes down to is protecting me from pain. But the way the pain was manifesting, the way that threat was created was like, okay, this is complicated. So we got to come up with a complicated solution. So we're going to do this crazy thing until we can find a way out. But it just comes down to, I am protecting you from emotional pain. So you don't want to leave this world.
how was the pain manifesting itself? How did you knew
Um,
that there was something like what in the conscious of the like in the subconscious of the mind that needed to be dealt with?
Very simple. The way you know you are trapped, the way that you know that there's a problem that needs to be fixed is that there's a gap between where you are and where you should be.
Oh,
Right? If I'm going through the world and everything's good and everything's working the way it should, everything's fine. You ain't got any problems you really need to deal with down there. Okay. If you're going through the world and you're like, man, Why do I not have a better job? Man, why am I in all these toxic relationships? Man, it's like I should be much more successful than I am given what I know. It's like, why is my business not working the way it is? Like, why am I never able to lose weight? Like, why can't I stop smoking? Like, I know how to do it. I know what to do. This shouldn't be working this way. Therefore, the problem isn't what you know. Problem is a forced perspective. This is messed up,
Hmm.
right? Something does not work the way you think it does. There's something you know or understand about yourself or the world that is not true in some way, shape, or form. And there's no way for you to really know what it is, right? All you know is this doesn't work. And that's okay because that's all you have to know. Because as soon as you say this doesn't work, oh, there's something my mind is doing to protect me in the short term that is screwing up the long term. I
Mm.
don't know what it is, but now I know there's a problem. So now I can start looking, right?
Wow.
It's hard to figure out what the problem is, but once you know what the problem is, it's easy to fix. And when you've got that kind of thing, it's not a knowledge problem. It is a force level problem. It's an emotional mind problem. It's a meaning problem. It's a subconscious mind problem because that part of you is protecting you from something, some kind of pain, based on how it understands who you are, and you don't know what that is, but that's okay because now you know where to look and you know the kinds of questions to ask.
Is that all considered shadow work? Doing the shadow work?
Yeah, yeah, fundamentally, yes. Because the shadow is like your blind spots, the things you can't see, the place you can't see, right? Fair enough. The stuff you see should be working a certain way. Therefore, the problem isn't in what you can see, it's in what you can't see,
Okay.
right? Now, shadow work is fundamentally a conscious process to kind of play with the unconscious mind, right? And it works to some degree, right? But again, you're looking at individual problems. You're not necessarily looking at the forest level perspective, right? Because we say, okay, why am I not good enough? Why do I feel I'm not good enough? Here's a list of reasons. Not why do I feel like I'm not good enough? Well, when you're 4, you didn't have any ability to do anything to change your environment, so you're powerless and weak. Oh, fix that. Fix that you were powerless and weak when you're 4. Go for it. Right? How you're supposed to fix that with shadow work? Like it just simply doesn't work that way. Like some tools you just can't get there with. But shadow work is a beautiful step to get you started moving in the right direction. Right? Everything helps. Every bit of work moves the ball forward. And it may need to be that you need to do some shadow work to get yourself to a place where you can do this deeper work. All parts of the process, right? So whatever tool you have that makes the most sense is going to move the ball forward the most. Use that. And pretty soon you're going to hit this point where you're kind of like spinning your wheels. You're going to hit this point of diminishing returns. Great. You have fixed everything you can with that tool. Time for the next. Right? That's what talk therapy kind of gets you trapped in, though. It's like, I've only got talk therapy. That's the only thing that works. So I'm just going to keep going, even though it stopped working a long time ago.
Yeah.
Once you hit that point, diminish returns, the problem's not there anymore. Do something else.
So would you suggest for someone who's in this position to completely stop talk therapy and move on to the next?
Well, not necessarily. If you're still getting benefits from talk therapy, keep going. If it's kind of hit the wall, it's like, okay, time to do the next thing.
Okay.
Right. And that's the sort of thing where you start asking questions like, okay, what might be next? Maybe you've been doing traditional talk therapy and you need to do like internal family systems, right? Which is a different kind of talk therapy, talking about parts and stuff like that. Well, that's much more subconscious mind language stuff. You're getting much closer, right? Maybe you need to do psychedelic assisted therapy. That stuff is really powerful and works really well. But again, you're going to hit a wall. Maybe you need to do some hypnosis. Maybe you need to go learn something else. Like maybe it's faith, maybe it's religion. You need, maybe that's the missing piece. Who knows, right? And so what I would say is just like start messing around on Twitter, YouTube. And I'm serious about that because right, you don't really know what you need. You don't really know what the question asks. So you just like start scrolling around until something catches your attention. Oh, I'm curious about this. Great, go down that rabbit hole. Your mind is saying what I need is here somewhere. It's down this road. So go there. And as soon as something catches your attention, oh, this sounds it. Do that.
I know that's
If it's wrong.
yoga and Tai Chi for some people.
Yeah, it could be
Yeah.
yoga, could be Tai Chi, could be meditation, could be acupuncture, could be Ayurvedic medicine or Chinese herbal medicine, or like who knows, right? Because maybe it's not even a mental problem, maybe it's a physical problem, right? Like I have bipolar disorder, didn't know that. I have ADHD, didn't know that. Those are things I need medication for. That's not meaning, that's not understanding. No, my brain is wired different and it needs a certain kind of support. Didn't know that. Got it now. Awesome. Things are better. Solves a whole bunch of problems. But sometimes the problem keeps on showing up even though you've done all that stuff. Well, in that case, that's not the problem. It's something deeper, right? So solve the problem you can see as best you can until that stops working. And then you find the next thing. And all you have to do is keep looking around and following your curiosity. As soon as something says, this is it, grab that, keep going. Your mind is always looking, trying to help you, right? Even trying to protect you from pain is just trying to help you as best you can, right? So say, oh, down there, go down that way. That thing, give me some of that.
Whatever helps.
Whatever helps.
I know.
Solve the biggest problem you can right now. Keep on solving them until you're there. That's all you got to do. Getting anything you want in life is just solving a series of problems, fundamentally, right?
Mm,
So, great. What's my biggest problem? Let me solve that.
I know from personal experience that sometimes, even though you brought something to light, right? You did this
Mm-hmm.
shadow work in one specific thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there's a huge, at least for me, that's my experience. There's a
Mm-hmm.
huge emotional delay. It seems like the brain, the conscious mind,
Mm-hmm.
completely understood and
Yes.
conceptualized the problem. Like that's it.
Mm-hmm.
That's why that's what happened. That's
Yep.
why it is like I acted the way I acted. But
Mm-hmm.
emotionally, like your feelings in your heart, like they're like 10 years ago, like
Yes.
they're not catching,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. And
how
okay, so the emotions you're feeling are the output of that part of your mind that's looking at the forest. That's how it's communicating to you.
mm,
So if you're still feeling a certain way, that's still true at that level. That's why I can know that I'm good enough and feel like I'm not good enough. Why? Because from different perspectives, you get a different answer. I understand what I did. That's okay, cool. But it still means I'm a piece of crap that doesn't deserve anything good on this level. Great. You haven't fixed that part of the problem yet. This is still not true. This is still true up here. We haven't changed it up here. So a lot of the work that I'm doing is bringing that unconscious understanding in line with a more rational understanding that we have of things now. We're bringing things in alignment. And sometimes the thing that's wrong is our rational understanding of the world. Why? Because we don't like what we feel. So we're going to create a different freaking answer. I'm going to go live this instead. Right? I feel like a loser. No, no, no. I'm going to win. I'm a winner. I look at how successful I am. Look at my boat, my car, and the win, money, and yada, 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 and all these rushes, right? I'm a winner. I'm a winner. I'm a winner. Nope. This is wrong. This is true. I am a loser on this level. Great. We need to reconcile those. Right. And sometimes what has to shift is you have to let go of the idea that you're a winner to get to where you need to be. Right. And the very simple thing is this: you don't have to like it. Whatever you've got coming up from there, like I'm a piece of crap, I don't deserve anything, I'm useless, whatever it is, fine. You don't have to like it. Like it's if you liked it, it wouldn't be a problem. Therefore, it's 100% going to be something you don't like. It's probably something you're trying to prove wrong your entire life, and that's okay. You only have to allow it to be true long enough to do something with it. We have to understand why it's true to prove it wrong. Because if you don't know why it's true, you can't prove it wrong.
but doesn't that clash with the idea that we talked in the beginning that
Mhm.
you should believe that there's nothing wrong with you to begin with?
Well, I said that's where we end up. I didn't say that's where we started.
Oh, okay.
Getting there is an entire process, right? Because you believe there's something wrong with you. This is truth for you right now. You want to get to a point where there's nothing wrong with you. Yeah, that's where we want to be. But we have to start with there's something wrong with me. I'm the problem. To get to point B, you have to start at point A, which means you have to own the truth of what point A is. But the entire point of owning the truth of what point A is to get the hell away from there to point B. But you can't just magic yourself to point B. If you were at point B, you wouldn't have these problems in the first place. So that ain't where you at. So you have to own you're not at point B, figure out what point A is, and then walk the path. But as long as you're willing to own the truth, whatever it is, however ugly it is, then you can figure out what point A is. And you only have to be there long enough to start walking the hell away from it. So by owning the truth of it, you start the process of changing that truth.
Groundbreaking stuff, man.
Thank you.
That's
Like
really
I said,
interesting.
I figured some stuff out, right? And that's why the book is here. Here's everything I've figured out along the way that works for me, that solves some problems I don't see any other way to solve.
Mm.
This is the book that I wrote to do that. And as best as it can, it's going to help you do that same thing.
All right. So, what's the name of your book?
The book is called Winner Peace. Kind of like Inner Peace, but Winner Peace because I want to win. How to end inner conflict, make success inevitable. Because once you reconcile all that stuff, now you're working with the truth of who you are and the truth of how the world works, which means really easy to get to where you want to be.
I'm going to make sure to leave the link on the description below. I wanted to ask you one more question. So throughout our conversation, you mentioned 4 pillars.
Yes.
Could you elaborate a little bit more on them?
Yeah. The 4 beliefs that I get you to in the end are there's nothing wrong with me and there never was. Who I am is not the problem. Okay. The problem is how to navigate the world. The second one, there is nothing to heal and there never was. Emotions are not pain, they're simply questions. Therefore, the things that go wrong in life are not wounds. They are just challenges I didn't have a way to overcome better at the time. Fair enough. Learn the lessons, move on. I am good enough as I am to deserve whatever I choose. Right? I deserve it. It's a matter of going and getting it. It's a matter of doing the work to bring it into my life if I choose to do so. And I don't have to prove it to anybody, not even myself, because my value is my choice.
Oh, that's beautiful. You just put a smile on my face.
No, I hope so, man. You know, imagine what it is like to live life from that perspective.
It's just a bliss. I mean, you can do anything.
Yeah. Doesn't mean you don't have problems. Doesn't mean you're not going to feel bad because you're going to face challenges. If you're not facing challenges in the world, you're doing it wrong. You're playing small. So I want to be afraid because I want to be going up against stuff that it's not easy for me to overcome. I want to be sad because I want to lose stuff that's valuable to me because it means I've valued stuff. I want to feel shame because it means I didn't measure up. It means there's space to grow. It means I'm actually setting the bar high enough for myself instead of keeping it too low. I want all that. Is it going to suck when I feel it? Yes. And that's the thing that's going to help me overcome it because it's showing me what the problem is so I can fix it.
Yeah, and the reward is a life. It's growth. It's a life worth living, right?
Yes, exactly. Exactly. A life worth living fully.
Beautiful. Ryan, I think we should stop there. It's very nice final word. I need to ask you, do you have any final remarks? Anything else that you'd like to say?
Yeah, I think the best possible advice I can give anyone along the way is simply to be curious. If things are not working, all you have to do is ask yourself one very question. What am I missing? There's something wrong about how I understand the situation. What am I missing? And because you're asking your mind, what am I missing? It's going to help you find what you're missing. It's going to help you find the problem. All you got to do is get curious and ask, what am I missing?
All right. Beautiful. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
It was an absolute pleasure and an honor to be here, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, everyone. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. We're going to announce the winner of the giveaway at the end of this month. See you next time. Thank you so much for hanging out with us today. If it's your first time watching the show, make sure to like and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please rank the show 5 stars. This will ensure that the podcast is recommended to even more people and allow me to keep doing what I love. Check out now the Brewcast store, Explore store, filled with awesome goodies from hoodies to t-shirts to mugs. We've got you covered. Stay in style with Brewcast. Embrace the shock, set the trend. Buy now at brew-cast.com/store. Again, that's brew-cast.com/store. Link on the description below. Be a Brewcast model and get free stuff. We'd love to see how you and your loved ones enjoy Brewcast. Snap a picture of yourself, your family, your friends, or even your pets wearing Brewcast merch, or watching an episode of the show and send it to us and become part of Brewcast. We'll feature you and your pictures at the end of every episode, just like the ones you're seeing on the screen right now. You can upload your pictures at brew-cast.com/contact or tag us on social media. Alright everyone, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much and see you next time. Bye bye.